Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel. This is my review for The Princess and the Frog, which came out in 2009. It's Disney's 49th movie overall, and the first movie of the revival era. The movie takes place in New Orleans during the 1920s, and our main character is Tiana, a young woman who has dreams of opening up her own restaurant. And this was more of her father's dream, but unfortunately her father passed away while she was very young, so she's been working hard, and I mean hard, to try to save up and fulfill that dream. So you got to admire her dedication, but at the same time, she's such a workaholic that she just kind of forgets how to have a social life and go out with people. Somewhere else in New Orleans, Prince Naveen arrives into town, a young, charismatic, and very wealthy guy, or at least he would have been if his parents didn't cut him off, because he's such a spoiled brat who's never learned to do anything in his life. His arrival catches the eye of a local witch doctor named Dr. Facilier, also known as the Shadow Man, voiced by Keith David. And because Prince Naveen gets into trouble with the Shadow Man, he gets turned into a frog. He soon seeks out Tiana, who he thinks is a princess, asks her to kiss him so he can turn back into a prince, but unfortunately, because she's not a princess, she herself is turned into a frog, and the two of them find their way in the bayous, try to head back to New Orleans to become human again. We have now officially made it into the revival era, and last week I reviewed Walt, which is a movie that some people have debated is the start of the revival era, and I said that I think it's the last movie of the post-Renaissance. And after rewatching The Princess and the Frog again, I feel incredibly confident that, yeah, this is the beginning of the revival era, because it marks the return of Ron Clements and John Musker as directors. It's a traditional Broadway-style musical in the vein of The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin, and it just feels like the beginning of a new era. It feels like Disney going back to tradition, similar to how Cinderella marked the beginning of the Silver Era, and The Little Mermaid marked the beginning of the Renaissance. I was really excited for this movie when it was coming out in 2009, because by this point I've well past my anti-animation phase, and I was revisiting a lot of the classic Disney animated movies, or at least their most iconic. So I was really looking forward to this movie, mainly because we haven't had a 2D animated movie in some time. I mean, a 5-year gap in between this movie and Home on the Range is not that big a gap in terms of time, but considering that everyone hates Home on the Range, it certainly felt like an eternity. I really liked this movie when I saw it in theaters, and rewatching it again, I still really enjoy it, to the point where it's in my top 10 of favorite Disney animated movies. Seeing a traditionally animated Disney movie after the company made 3 attempts to throw their hat into the 3D animated game is a breath of fresh air. And again, while Bolt is a good attempt, they still hadn't found their voice when it came to 3D animation. Meet the Robinsons was a slight improvement over Chicken Little, and Chicken Little was a piece of shit. And similar to how movies from the Renaissance took stuff from the Golden Age and Silver Age and pretty much improved on them, The Princess and the Frog took elements from all past eras and improved on them as well. There isn't a whole lot in terms of big flaws when it comes to the most iconic Renaissance films, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Lion King. But I will admit, and I've said this beforehand, while I'm not personally bothered by Ariel as a character, she's not one of the best Disney princesses out there. And while technically Tiana is not a princess, at least until the end of the movie, she is a much better character than Ariel ever was, because she's very independent, she's hardworking, she's charming, she's just a great character overall, and has flaws. While she's an excellent cook and works her tail off, she does have her flaws in the sense that she just abandons her entire social life. She doesn't see people, she doesn't do anything outside of work, and it's kind of cut her off. And in a way, as Prince Naveen in the movie says, she's a stick in the mud. And then on the opposite end, you have Prince Naveen, who is just straight up spoiled. He's clueless a lot of the times. He has never learned to do anything for himself. And the fact that these two characters are stuck together on this journey, it's very Pixar-esque in the sense that a lot of the big Pixar movies will take two unlikely characters and put them on a trip together. but it feels like a traditional Disney movie. There are only a few elements that feel like it's borrowing from Pixar. Getting past the fact that this was the first Disney movie that John Lasseter greenlit as chief creative officer, the only other Pixar trait that I can think of outside of the two unlikely characters on a journey together is the music. Randy Newman not only does the score for this film, but he also wrote a lot of the songs. And the songs in this movie are great. Ever since The Lion King, there really hasn't been a Disney movie that's a musical that really stood toe-to-toe with the best of the Renaissance. And again, their last movie that was a musical was Home on the Range, and it was a parody of Disney movies, right down to the point where Alan Menken did the songs. And in this movie, having Randy Newman do the music is like a breath of fresh air, because he doesn't sing any songs in this movie like he did with Toy Story or Bug's Life. But his style is absolutely perfect for the setting of this movie. It's in New Orleans. The very first song in the film is Down in New Orleans, performed by Dr. John, and it sets the tone immediately. Two of the other great songs in this movie are Almost There, performed by Tiana's voice actress, Anika Noni Rose, and Keith David performing Friends on the Other Side. And again, the style of these songs just fits perfectly with the setting of New Orleans. And even though you have the same duo that directed The Little Mermaid and Aladdin, the songs here feel like a breath of fresh air. Like really, even though Home on the Range was a musical, Princess and the Frog feels like a Disney movie that we haven't seen in a long, long time. Now, speaking of Keith David as the Shadow Man, he's fantastic. And in my opinion, no other Disney villain that has come after him has topped him. The Shadow Man is the last great Disney villain in my opinion. And not only is Keith David's voice performance helpful in making him a great villain, but the way he's animated, his design, and the fact that there's a little bit of sympathy towards him. I'm not going to say a whole lot, but unlike a villain like Jafar or Ursula, you can tell that he's not really in control of his own abilities. He really did a whole deal with the devil type of thing to get his voodoo magic. The most recent comparison that I can actually make is probably Steppenwolf from Zack Snyder's Justice League, where, yeah, he might be the main villain, but he's also trying to appeal to somebody higher up than him, and if he screws up, well, that's his ass. The movie also has some great side characters as well. You have this hugely obese alligator named Lewis, who just has a dream of playing trumpet in a jazz band. He's a funny character, and so is Jim Cummings as this hick firefly Ramon. And what I like is that they're not just there for comic relief. They're side characters that actually have their own story. And in terms of Ramon, his story it's heartfelt, but it also ends in kind of a tragic way. If you haven't seen the movie, I won't say much more beyond that, but when I first saw this and what they did to Ramon at the end, I was like, wow, okay, that's sad. Jennifer Cody as Lottie, Tiana's best friend, is absolutely hilarious. Just this really energetic, spoiled, but yet really charming in a way, daughter to a sugar mill owner, voiced by John Goodman. And both of them are great characters, even if they are very much side characters. I don't have anything to say in terms of actual complaints, though I will add that even though this movie's 12 years old, I am disappointed that it wasn't as big a hit as Disney hoped it would be, or that it should have been, because it's really that good. Thinking back on how this movie did at the box office, I'm kind of reminded of what's going on with West Side Story right now, and why that movie's unfortunately not doing well at the box office. I know there are several factors that may have played into why this movie didn't do as well as one would hope, but one of the big reasons has to do with the fact that the next week after this movie came out, we saw the release of James Cameron's Avatar, which ended up being the highest grossing movie of all time. And much like what's going on right now with West Side Story, in the sense that people are just waiting for Spider-Man No Way Home, I imagine the decision to release The Princess and the Frog a week before Avatar came out was not a good idea, considering that a lot of people were just wanting to see Avatar instead of Princess and the Frog. And look, say what you want about Avatar right now, but back then, it was a highly anticipated movie, and yeah, there's a reason why that movie made the buttload of money that it did. But back to Princess and the Frog, even though I'm disappointed that this movie wasn't as big of a hit as it should have been, it's still great regardless. I mean, 12 years later, who really cares about the amount of money that it's made? Because it's no longer a factor. It's like, do people still talk about this movie? Do people still enjoy it? Yes, then that's all that's important. It's how I view West Side Story right now. It's like, yeah, it's not making money, but people are really liking it and it's getting unanimous praise. So in the long run, I think that's all that matters. Like future generations, when they watch these two movies, the new West Side Story and The Princess and the Frog, the box office intake is not going to be something that crosses their mind. And with Princess and the Frog, I would say it's worth seeing in your lifetime. The only thing that's keeping me from saying get off your ass and go see it right now is the fact that, unlike Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, or The Lion King, I wasn't emotionally moved by this movie like I wanted to be. But still, great songs, beautiful animation, good characters. This is just back to form for Disney animation, and it's a much-needed return. And there you go, that's my review for The Princess and the Frog. And even though this marked the beginning of the revival era, the next movie would officially define the era, and the way Disney would handle 3D animated movies going forward. And that's 2010's Tangled. Rather than talking about this movie next week, I'm just going to talk about it tomorrow, because both these movies really helped define this era, even though one of them was a bigger hit and the other wasn't. So until then, I want to know what you guys think about The Princess and the Frog. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one. Hello everyone, I just wanted to say thank you all for watching my review for The Princess and the Frog. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, go check out my Twitch channel, and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day, and take care of yourselves.